Yeah. As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH-LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Good morning, everyone. Some of you might be familiar with the phrase, woke up this morning in my right mind. And we're really going to talk about the cogency, the urgency, the relevance of that cultural term in terms of families coping together with Alzheimer's disease. As many of you know, it's affecting a growing number of older Americans and impacting their ability to adequately care for themselves. Regretfully, family members who step in to support loved ones with this disease experience their own stress and distress with taking on the role of a caregiver. We're going to find out today from some really astute and committed researchers, Dr. Joan Monin and Kathleen Williams, who are studying the dynamics of these relationships, and also how we can explore ways to strengthen those bonds through their clinical research. And we're joined really today with Reverend Dr. Leroy Perry, pastor of St. Stephen's AME Church in Brantford, and he's a cultural ambassador for the Yale Clinical Research Program. Reverend Elvin Clayton is with us, Pastor Walters Memorial AME Zion Church, and also a cultural ambassador to the Yale Clinical Research Program. And last but not least, Reverend Darrell Blue. I think, Reverend Blue, your son was unavailable today, so you're standing in for him, and we appreciate your kind of holding the family legacy banner high. But Reverend Darrell Blue, presiding elder of the Rochester Syracuse District, pastor Memorial AME Zion Church, and cultural ambassador to the Yale Clinical Research Program. Dr. Monin and Dr. Williams, Kathleen Williams, rather, we're going to dive right in. There's so much we want to talk about today, but let's be sure when it gets to at least 11:40, if we haven't talked about how people can enroll in your program, in the clinical research program, let's be sure we don't forget to do that. Time flies as we're talking about such an important matter, and there's so many issues we want to kind of create the context for. But I want to start, if I can, first with Reverend Perry and Reverend Clayton and Reverend Blue about how the ambassadors, quite frankly, are supporting. We just want to inform people that the ambassadors are supporting 3 projects right now: autism, the effects of alcohol on the body, and how Alzheimer's and dementia impact families. But today, as mentioned, we're going to talk about the latter. Reverend Clayton, Reverend Perry, and Reverend Blue, share with us why it's important to give attention to Alzheimer's disease. Who'd like to go first?
Well, Tom, I'll start. Alzheimer's is important for us to talk about because it impacts our community, the Black community, twice as much as our white brothers and sisters. And it not only impacts the patient, but the strain that it has on the family is tremendous. The care of a husband or wife who has a spouse that have this disease, their whole life changed. And not only does the spouse life change, but children and grandchildren life changes as well. So this conversation today will be helpful to all of us who may be connected to a person with Alzheimer's.
Reverend Blue?
Yeah, for me, Tom, this is very personal. I was fortunate to grow up in the household with my great-grandparents and my grandmother. My great-grandmother had Alzheimer's, And I watched as my grandmother provided care for her. And then also as a young child, I watched the impact, the toll that it took on my great grandmother as her mind, her memory slowly began to slip away. So this is important to me, and this is one reason that I'm glad that Yale has taken up this topic, because this is something that has impacted my family, personally.
And I would like to simply say that I think that seniors are the most vulnerable population in our society, and sometimes the forgotten population until, it reaches home. And when it hits home, then all of a sudden we realize how important it is. I worked as a director of 2 senior citizen programs, one in New York. And I've seen seniors who would come to meal and eat the meal, and a half hour later would come back to get the meal again. And I'm wondering, where are the doctors, where are the family members that can come in and give support? And our congregations are baby boomer congregations. we're at the point now where we're likely to see a lot of this. And so it's important that we talk about it. It's important that we look at the research that's involved in it. It's important that we look at family participation and how we together might work to alleviate or at least make this condition palatable in our society.
Just before I go to Dr. Manan, is that reasonably correct?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Manan and Kathleen Williams, just before I go to them, Reverend Blue and Reverend Clayton, maybe elaborate a little bit on Dr. Perry kind of talked about not just dismissing these folks, but elaborate a little bit more, if you could, about how do we continue to not stigmatize and segregate people and dismiss people, but on the contrary, to kind of lift up their stories of triumph and even victory and even overcoming life's challenges. That's a major challenge, but how can we keep that in mind in terms of our intentionality?
Wow, that's a strong question, Tom. But I'll begin by saying the life stories of these loved ones, these parishioners, these community members who have lived their life or the latter part of life with Alzheimer's. And sometimes the caregiver themselves may pass away first because of the time and the effort that they put into this. The story of victory would be that we can learn, hopefully, from what has happened in the past, that we don't put it under a bushel or cover it up. Let the world know this is what happens to us if we continue on in this way. And there's some things that we can do through education, changing your diet, continue to exercise. And then the doctor can probably tell us a little more about this. Some of us have a gene in us that might lead into this. So this disease is difficult. And Dr. Blue was talking about his grandparents. I had a member that I walked in the door and she said, "Hi, Daddy." And at the time, I'm 35 years old. And I didn't know if I should go along with this this conversation as being daddy. But her husband said, "This is not your daddy. This is Brother Clayton." But she clearly said, "Look, I know who my daddy is, and this is my daddy." And so there were things that she just couldn't remember that was up front and close in the present, but she could remember the scriptures. She could remember the hymns, things of that nature. They never left. So that's, I'll stop there.
Really profound.
For me, as Dr. Perry mentioned earlier, because of the aging of our congregations, as leaders, we have to be cognizant of the fact that this is a reality. I know me personally, I've had members recently be diagnosed. So this is something that I know that I have to keep on the forefront. We've been partnering with the Alzheimer's Association so that way we can have talks and conversation so that families can be properly educated, because one of the things is this takes a team. As Dr. Perry was talking about earlier. And so as pastor, I'm like, hey, how can I support the caregivers? How can I support my members in this process? So I think that's part of helping to shape the narrative, and also to help show them that they're not on this journey by themselves. So it's important that we partner and that we provide that support that they need. And those are moments of victory for me, because it says to them, we're in this with you.
Well said. Well said. Dr. Martin and Kathy Williams, so let's jump right in. You both work in the social gerontology and health lab at the School of Public Health. And tell us a little bit about your journey and how you were enticed, and I don't know if your arm was twisted or whether you just had a dream or whether your parents kind of said do this, but how did you get involved with the field of gerontology, and also why is it important to you?
Sure, I guess I'll start. So I grew up in the Greek church, and I was in the choir, and I was just surrounded by older adults my whole life. And I was one of those kids who would sit at the adults' table and hear all the stories while the rest of the kids were off playing somewhere else. And I just loved, hearing about people's incredible experiences throughout their lives. And so I actually went to school for something totally unrelated, which was close relationships psychology. So I was really interested in helping romantic partners stay happy in their marriages or their romantic relationships. But I got really interested in how people support one another when they're going through hard times, or they're in pain, or they're depressed. But then I found out that there was this whole topic of older adult caregiving and how people take care of one another in their families. So I really wanted to devote kind of what I knew about relationships to help this specific issue. So that's really how I got started.
And Kathy, by the way, do you prefer Kathy or Kathleen?
Kathy is fine. Thank you.
Kathy is fine. All right. Good morning.
So good morning. I've been doing aging research for about 15 years now here at Yale. I grew up in a family also with a lot of respect for elders, and I lost my own dad to multi-infarct dementia. And for over 8 years, my siblings and I cared for him. He would move from house to house, and we were able to care for him and support him in a loving way, and till he passed with dignity. So it's very personal to me, this study and this research. Thank you.
So let's dive into the study. For we have until like 40 or so more minutes. But Dr. Martin, you're involved with the FACT AD. I mean, I love acronyms, but Families Coping Together, and that T really kind of stands out for me. Families Coping Together with Alzheimer's Disease, and the research focuses on how families manage this early stage dementia, Alzheimer's, and memory loss. People might have heard these terms either separately or independently or together, but dementia, Alzheimer's, and memory loss. But provide some, if you would, some context or understanding of the differences between Alzheimer's, dementia, memory loss due to aging.
Yeah, so people often get confused. What's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's disease and just kind of normal aging memory loss? And so dementia is really like the overarching category of all the different cognitive impairment disorders that you could have. So there's, vascular dementia, there's frontotemporal dementia, Parkinsonian's dementia, things like that. So dementia is really the overarching category that describes chronic memory loss, personality changes, or impaired reasoning. And then Alzheimer's disease is one of the diseases within that umbrella. And it's a really specific brain disease that progressively and irreversibly destroys memory and thinking skills through deterioration of connections in the brain. And age is the biggest risk factor for this disease. And so there's also just regular memory decline as you age too. So people get concerned like, oh, am I, getting dementia? But really the things to watch out for is that, everybody has some kind of decline over time. But if it's not noticeably disrupting your daily life, if you're able to still complete all of the tasks you usually would, and if you don't have difficulty learning and remembering new things, and there's not another medical condition that's causing memory problems, then it's probably fine. And things like stress or even taking care of another person can make you be a little bit off your game in terms of remembering things. So it's important to think about, are you sleeping enough? Are you stressed out? Did you have a major life event? Those types of things to think about.
And it's, you mentioned in general about the warning signs. Are there any specific or particular warning signs that really have captured your attention over the years that people should really know about?
Yeah, so it's pretty much what I just described. If you're having memory issues where you're unable to kind of learn new things, or if you're having trouble completing tasks to take care of yourself, or if you're noticing that you're, forgetting things that you're very familiar with. And then also if other people in your family start to notice things too, that can be, sometimes people aren't aware, so other people will notice before you do.
So the person, you often hear about people saying, "Oh, I don't know where I place my keys." That's they don't have to immediately come to you. So don't be too exasperated, or don't think that you're.
Yeah, that's okay. That happens to all of us.
Okay, good. I just wanted to throw that in because I couldn't find mine this morning. But my wife helped me find them. But 1 in 3 seniors die with Alzheimer's or another or some form of dementia. And do people die from? And we're not going to dwell on the morbid aspects of this show. So we are going to lift people up. So kind of just stay with us. But do people die only from Alzheimer's disease, or is it a complication related to some other factors?
Yeah, it's usually the complications that come with dementia or Alzheimer's disease. So if you get like to the later stages, sometimes you have difficulty swallowing. So it's hard to eat, or you can get infections from like the way that they have to feed you and things like that. So oftentimes you'll just be vulnerable to infection, as you lose those abilities to, do the main, eating behaviors and things like that. And then also your immune system can be compromised, so that can make it more likely for infections. So a lot of the times people don't die necessarily from dementia or Alzheimer's disease, when they write down the cause, but it really is dementia that is causing those symptoms that make it likely for you to, die. And then if eventually everyone had all of their symptoms taken care of, the brain is deteriorating. So it would cause like disruption of your organs to function. So it would at the very end be the main cause, but usually it doesn't get to that point. But it makes it very difficult for scientists to understand how many people are dying of dementia, because it might be written down other causes of death. So we have to be really careful that we're understanding what is causing people to pass away.
Indeed. Let me throw this out to everyone, because it's really the beauty of this show is having Kathy on this show and doctors on this show, and also lay persons and ministers, people just, I would say, concerned citizens that have a lot of evidence, either from their life experience or from their clinical and educational experience. But let me throw it out to everybody that African Americans are twice as likely to have Alzheimer's or dementia as whites. And some people have accused us of being a race-based show, but this is the reality. So I wonder just what do all of you believe are some of the if you hit the term social determinants of health that contribute to these disparities? And again, I want to throw it open to everybody. Kathy, would you like to start?
Sure. I would say that several factors can partly explain the elevated risk of Alzheimer's in African Americans. For instance, African Americans have higher rate of comorbidities like cardiovascular risk or diabetes, which are also risk factors for Alzheimer's disease. Hypertension over time may damage the blood vessels in the brain, which can starve the brain of oxygen and vital nutrients for the brain to function properly. And diabetes also affects how the brain uses glucose, which is its main fuel source. And these changes in the brain can cause lower scores on cognitive tests, which contribute to an elevated risk for Alzheimer's.
Reverend Blue?
Yeah, I was going to mention that because that was the issue that I saw with my great grandmother. She had diabetes. And over time, because of the lack of, her memory beginning to slip and everything, forgetting to take her medicine. So we had to be intentional to make sure we were very present, to make sure we address those things. As I think Kathy has said, I think the main thing is there's so many health issues in our culture that need to be addressed: hypertension, diabetes, and the list goes on. And so Reverend Clayton mentioned it earlier. I think it is important that we be intentional about exercising and watching diet and all of that stuff, which will help us be able to hopefully combat it. I mean, no, we don't have a cure for it yet, but it's something that we can help to mediate through those methods.
Reverend Perry, I see. I love your expression on. I've seen you a few times over the last few decades, but your thought expressions are really just convey so many thoughts to me. So I'd love to embarrass you on that, put you on blast for people to know that you're a cognitive person and a spiritual person, yes, but your brain is pumping out a lot of messages.
Well, I think we all agree that the social determinants of health is one of the key reasons that African Americans and minorities in particular are affected more so by these diseases. I think that what Reverend Blue alludes to for us is that maybe our focus ought to be that we start taking charge of our health now and, exercising, having a primary care physician, or going to, even if you just have to go to urgent care. But that's one of the things that we have, as a people, have somehow, it's not in our DNA to go to the doctors. The only time when we were children that we went to the doctor was when we had to get a physical to go to school. We took the shots. We didn't ask what was in them. We took the polio, the measles, the vaccine. We took them all, and we went to school. And we obviously had more time to be outside because we had no iPhones and we had no TVs that were worth anything. So our health was a little better, but our generations coming, it just seems to me in total, we as a people it's not in our DNA to go and get checked out. And I think at this point, we need to start taking, as we become more knowledgeable about the risks and about where we stand in terms of other ethnic groups, that we really seriously have to do more programs like this, Tom, put out more literature, and we have to make people more aware of the risks. So I think that having our guests on today and using this as a topic is a wonderful way of us embellishing the need of our participation in taking charge of our health.
Reverend Clayton, any thoughts in this regard?
Yes, sir. It goes back to education, I believe, the educational level of some of the people in our neighborhoods. Because if the education is low, the income will be low. And if the income is low, you may not have adequate housing. And then at the bottom of the barrel would be healthcare. So all of these things contribute to more people of color having dementia and Alzheimer's than our white brothers and sisters, because it could start right at the educational level and work its way up or work its way down, however, any way you want to choose it. So we need to address those areas as well. Make sure that all the bases are covered: education, the income, the housing, the healthcare, and then go back with exercising and eating properly. It all will help us be better.
Dr. Monin and Kathy, just before I go to the fact AD study, I guess wondered what the doctor, if you wanted, if anything that's just been mentioned has has resonated with you, or that you wanted to reinforce in terms of a social determinants of health standpoint.
Sure. I thought all of these pieces of advice were right on point. And I think, just managing health issues early before they get too severe and then can affect other parts of the body, including the brain, is really the key. So just early attention to things like, diet and having the healthy resources and, the food and the shelter and being in touch with the doctor are all going to be really important things.
Excellent. Let's go to the fact AD study. Again, families coping, and I'm going to say capital T in bold, together with Alzheimer's disease, because the study doesn't look at dementia specifically in terms of the elimination of it per se, but more specifically how it impacts the person's relationships, and especially those who step up to support them, that are affected emotionally, that are affected just in terms of proximity. So describe a little bit about how relationships change when an adult child becomes a caregiver for the person who once cared for them, because I think that dynamic, we've certainly forgot about the generational impact. We hear a lot about generational impact and generational trauma and epigenetics, et cetera. But this is really a topic that really intrigued me about doing this show. So talk about the fact AD study and how and the relationship issue, and particularly the family dynamics.
Yeah, so there has been a lot of research more so on romantic partners and spouses and how they deal with coping with Alzheimer's disease together, but not really as much on adult children and their parents in general. And it's a very specific type of relationship because that person who's your parent has taken care of you your whole life. And you might have seen them take care of your grandparents or your great grandparents. So there's a lot of ways that you're learning about care in that family. And then even with adult children and their parents, the parents usually still give way more support to the adult child than vice versa throughout the life. It's just part of being a parent and a child. But then as the parent might have memory loss or start to be able to not take care of themselves, then the child has to notice these things and think about, is it my place, to take care of my parent who I'm used to, having take care of me or my children? And, I might have children to take care of, and now I have to take care of my parents. And, there's a respect issue. There's a lot of things that we need to understand about how you move into that role, because oftentimes it's gradual. Other times, they have a critical fall or something like that, and then you just have to take care of them. But other times you kind of have to negotiate that role. And so I'm trying to help people understand how you do that a little easier, and then also include other family members in your environment to help you do that. Because again, I think, was it Dr. Clayton who said that this is really a community thing, and we need lots of people around to help each other do this. Or it might have been.
A lot of wisdom on the show. A lot of wisdom. A lot of. Kathy, weigh in a little bit as a clinical research nurse. I'd be curious of your thoughts as well and your involvement with the study.
Well, as Joan said, one of the very interesting aspects of this study is we have the family members have some discussions about issues that are important to them, and it's a safe environment. And it's very cathartic for the family members to talk about these issues that usually you don't address. I know with my dad in day-to-day care, you don't take time to talk about what are your concerns down the road. You're just so in the moment. And this allows the family members to step out of the moment. And really, the people that have gone through our study have really benefited, I think, from that ability just to talk freely. So that's what I would say.
And again, in about 3 or 4 more minutes, we'll talk more about this study in particular and how people can enroll. But share a little bit about what do you hope to accomplish with this relationship building study? What are some of your objectives and desires and desires and dare I say prayers that the study might have an impact?
Yeah, so there's lots of resources for families dealing with dementia that are more about the practical tasks or like the therapy, like occupational therapy or things like that. But there's really not too many programs that kind of help with these family dynamics and having these conversations with each other. So the goal of this project is really to learn about how we can make programs that go along with those therapy and practical task programs to make them just more holistic and really get at the relationship harmony of the family at the same time.
Kathy, your thoughts about what you hope to accomplish?
I would refer to Joan. Joan is the author of this study, and
right.
I'm an operational person.
Operations are good. Someone has to do the work. So someone has to tote the water. Well said. Well said. We'll in terms of I guess keep you both on the line for a second. In terms of personality and behavioral changes though that come with dementia or Alzheimer's or memory loss. What are some, and you talked to Mon, and you've kind of alluded to this somewhat, but what are some of the tips for better communication with that person? And then we'll talk about the study.
Yeah, being patient is probably the biggest one. Allowing time to listen to a person living with dementia, even if it may not make sense what they're saying. They're trying to communicate something to you, and it may not align with what's going on in this world, but it's still communicating a desire, that we need to respond to. So just having patience, and then along with that, learning how to interpret what they want from the conversation too, so maybe they're reaching out for you and calling you their dad, but maybe it's because they're longing for some kind of, connection with someone that gives them great comfort, and they're misinterpreting that as their dad, but really you are filling the same place for them as their dad would. So it's fine to reach out with the same love and respect, and not necessarily always have to, clear up who you exactly are. Like you can try, but you don't have to, it's not that important. And then also just, showing respect, don't treat that person like a child. So a lot of people might, not take someone seriously if they have dementia. But they're still an elder, and that's important to not, talk to them like they're a baby or something. And then also just avoiding, criticizing or correcting or arguing, just being calm with that person, because people, no matter what their cognitive ability are, can read other people's emotions. And if you get really upset or anxious, people respond to that in the same way. And they may not be able to kind of control their emotions the way they used to, and they might get really agitated. So it's good to just, be really calm, give them choices, have respect.
Excellent. And just before we go to how people can find out more about the study and even potentially enroll, Reverend Perry and Reverend Clayton and Reverend Blue, I wanted to pose another challenging question to you. And just as I begin to think about this question in my mind, I think about the challenges that you guys have committed your lives to. I mean, not just every Sunday, but 24/7, 365, just the challenges of other people's existence. And I think of funerals that you've done, to be morbid, but just so talk about, if you could, Reverend, about the importance of elder respect. We've alluded to it before, but I think it definitely needs to be elaborated. Mention again the importance of elder respect and elder care, because for a long time, churches, that's could be considered to be one of our historical reasons for the existence of the church. And specifically, how can churches and other support systems help family members who really could be overwhelmed and often are overwhelmed by caring for a loved one with dementia? So kind of the church role.
I think that before we had the church, we had the family. And we had what we call the extended family. We took care of our elderly people. We didn't want to see them going into nursing homes. We would find ways of caring for them. I think the question is that there is a crisis in culture, that the lessons of the elders may not be as relevant to the generations that are now on the scene as they were in our generation. So I think it's important that we talk about, that we have this kind of program going so that we can, for those young people who are coming up, for them to know that there are healthcare professionals who are concerned about them getting the kind of necessary training that can help them, or information that can help them. Because, where do you turn to? Preachers don't have this kind of information. We can tell them trust in God, but we also have to be able to say to them, you have to get a professional help. That's not my calling. But my calling is to advise you where to go to get it. And as I said, there's a crisis in culture right now. And that's where we are. I remember my father took care of his mother until almost the day she died, because he would not want to see her go into a nursing home or into some other kind of facility. That's what we did. That's how close we kept it. Today, I don't know. I think if I got sick, my daughter might put me on the first on the first bus going to a senior a nursing home or something. I ain't got time to take care of Daddy. But you see, that's not the way we did it. We took our parents took care of their parents, and we expect our children to take care of us. But I'm not betting on it.
Reverend Blue, I see you're nodding.
Yeah, I mean, I was just reflecting on what Dr. Perry was saying. My mother just finished taking care of my grandmother, who just passed in November. And that was our conversation. I said to her, Mom, you are still working. I want you to care for yourself, but I don't care what I said to her. She kept just reiterating to me, I am not putting your grandmother in a nursing home. I don't care what I have to do. And she would work during the day, come home, take care of her, go to sleep a little bit, and then, go back to work. And I kept saying, man, but you're going to be wore down as the caretaker. But she did not care what she had to do. She said, that's part of, as Dr. Perry said, part of the culture, her upbringing. As I said, my grandmother did it for my great-grandmother, and my mother felt obligated to provide that same quality care to my grandmother. And then I began to think about it, because, oftentimes when you send them to a nursing home, you don't know what type of care they're going to get or receive. The hope is they receive quality care, but we don't know that. And my mother just reiterated, I know the care she's going to receive here, because she learned to alternate between my mom and her sister. And so I think it is important. So family first, And then I think our role as pastors is, as Dr. Clayton said earlier, to be a channel of education, to say, hey, here are the appropriate people that you need to approach, and to have sessions so that people can ask questions. And also, I know at Memorial, one thing we did, we formed a health ministry to address those needs. So as people have questions, we have people who are nurses in social work and all that background, so that they can have professionals that they can talk to, and from there they can point them in the right direction. So for me, that's our role, to make sure we have adequate staff or people who can help support our members and community when they need that assistance.
Definitely. Reverend Clayton and Kathy, I want to come to you next about the study, and because we have about 12 or 13 more minutes. Reverend Clayton, any thoughts in this regard?
I'll go back to the church. Church as a whole should continue to pray for these families who are dealing with it. That's number one. And then there are some support that we give. You can give the families some kind of relief. Some people who are caregivers, they're at home all the time, 24/7. Sometimes just an afternoon sitting with the patient, sitting with the member, to give that other family member a break. Or they may want to go away for a weekend. There are things that we can do that are simple, that will ease some of the stress on the families. I think everything else was pretty well covered.
Excellent. Kathy, let's dive in for the remaining minutes. And again, if I've omitted some issues or thoughts that are on your mind, kind of jump in after Kathy kind of tells us a little bit about how does one qualify for the study, and what's expected of the person when they sign up, and also how many people are currently enrolled. But Kathy, just jump in. Tell us a little bit how does a person qualify. This is we're sending out the recruiting tool. We want a good Marine.
Yes, so families qualify for our study if the parent even has a concern about their memory. They do not need to have a definitive diagnosis, and they need to have an adult child who would be willing to be in the study with them. What the study entails is there's an initial phone call where they are consented over the phone. And if the parent does better with paper copies, we can mail paper consents. And then there is a survey that's answered by both the person with the dementia and the adult child. And that can be done via email or snail mail, or we can read it over the phone for the parent, if that's how they best process information. And we pay them $50 each for that visit. And then 2 weeks later, we do a Zoom call. We send everything to their homes. If they don't have Wi-Fi, we send them Wi-Fi. We send them tablets. They need nothing, but they need to open the case and put a finger cuff on, which is a Velcro piece. And we monitor their blood pressure while they play a game and answer some questions and have discussions. And each participant gets $100 for that visit. And then the visits are repeated in 1 year. So
Go ahead, please.
We currently have 110 families enrolled. And for the person with dementia, 76% are Caucasian and 24% identify as non-Caucasian. For the caregivers, it's 72% who identify as Caucasian and 28% who identify as non-white. And I am really focusing on diversity in our recruitment. I did attend the Black Men Brains Health Conference. I work with the Healthy Black Brain Center. I'm talking at their Lunch and Learn tomorrow. They have a participant research pool for people of that community that have identified as wanting to be involved in research. I spoke at Reverend Blue's church one evening, so we are available to speak at church groups, support groups, anything you would like us to speak at. And we advertise in Intercity News also to try and reach a more diverse population.
So Kathy, tell us, how can a person sign up? I'm ready to Fine,
Oh,
yeah.
so it's very easy. It's Kathleen with a K .williams@yale.edu. I think that's easier than a phone number, but in case anyone has a pen handy, my phone number is 203-687-3141. So it's Kathleen.williams@yale.edu.
Perfect.
Thank
And the fact that you're so accessible is really, really critical. Kathy, I guess I had a little follow-up, and then for everyone to weigh in, we have about 8 or so more minutes. And if we've forgotten something that's burning on your heart, please kind of throw that in. But Kathy, as a clinical research nurse, and you referenced the issue of inclusion and diverse populations being important, but just kind of let's kind of emphasize that again about why that is so critical for the study to be authentic and transparent.
Well, inclusion of a diverse population is important in any research study because we need to know the stories and what's going on in different families. Not every family is the same, not every culture is the same. So inclusion is very important for us so we can address the needs, because different cultures might have different needs. Some cultures, as one of the reverends says, the family stays home no matter what, where in other cultures, they're more likely to put them in a home. So it's important for us to learn what's going on in all different families and cultures around the country. Thank you.
And Kathy, you might have mentioned the duration, but I didn't quite hear the length of time that a person might be, once I decide to enroll, how long I'll be engaged with you, so to speak.
So the first visit occurs usually within a week, and then 2 weeks later you have a follow-up visit, and then in a year you would repeat. And the first visit is 30 minutes to 60 minutes. The second visit is an hour and a half, usually.
Let's open it up, everybody. It's 11:47, and around 11:55, Harry will play the music, and we'll have to wait till the next show. But any thoughts or comments or elaborations?
I had a question of Kathy. If the person has had Alzheimer's for a long period of time, are they still eligible?
Thank you for that question. Actually, we need people who are still able to answer questions about themselves and their feelings. So we really are looking for more early stage dementia. Thank you for clarifying that, Reverend Perry. We do on the first phone call, I do a mini mental test. It's a telephone interview for cognitive screening to make sure the study is not going to be too stressful for someone whose dementia is a little further advanced.
Thank you.
But to maximize the time, I'm sure with all the importance of the topic, there has to be some comments that you might want to make. Actually, I'll jump in. Dr. McMorrow, in terms of proactive, you hear this term proactive management of Alzheimer's and dementia to perhaps improve the quality of a person's life. Is that term proactive management a real term, or is it just a smoke and mirrors incentive to wait until the demise of the person? But what is there such a thing as proactive management in this regard?
Yeah, I think there is. So a lot of people may not get diagnosed with dementia until it's too late. So it's actually quite helpful to make sure we know what's going on in terms of cognitive impairment early. So the best thing we can do is try to identify, if there's something going on, because then you can get into a clinical trial, because they're testing all types of therapeutics. Even if it's not going to cure dementia, it could delay the onset of symptoms that can be really helpful to maximize how long you have a nice quality of life. And then it also gives you time to communicate with your loved ones about what your wishes are for the future and what your wishes are for them too. So caregivers might feel guilty about doing things later down the road, but if they've had an opportunity to talk with the person who has dementia and really understand what they want for that person, it can be actually really helpful for the whole family to know their wishes. So while they're still able to do that's good. And then also sharing, news with friends and family about having dementia and having them kind of see who is supportive in the family network or in the church, and really kind of getting support from them, reaching out, saying, these are the things I really need help with. Can you help me with any of these things? And then also just, joining a support group early on in the process so that you can get tips from other people who have been navigating these challenges maybe ahead of you.
Dr. Moran, I have a quick question. Does mindful mental exercises like puzzles and things like that help to defer dementia?
So, mindfulness techniques and even things, like as part of being a parishioner or in the church, praying or having spirituality can actually be really helpful. And then there's also the cognitive types of games and really kind of stretching your ability to make connections with things. So they're finding that if you keep on learning new things, that can be really helpful. So learning a new language, learning the keyboard if you've always wanted to do that.
playing the guitar, playing the guitar
like
even. You say playing the guitar, Mike, because I know there's a guitar instructor that we might have available.
And they're also really emphasizing dancing too, because dancing is both a cognitive thing and also a physical activity thing. And it also involves music, and it's also about communication.
I have one question that I must ask.
Please.
Who have had a stroke and have recovered, but they may think that there's something still going on, that it may be early signs of dementia or Alzheimer's. Would they qualify for the study?
Yeah, if they're still able to answer questions and kind of tell about their feelings and things like that, they are welcome to be in the study.
Okay.
Again, Harry's going to play the music in about two minutes. But Kathy, I guess I want to kind of come back to you. That I sensed your excitement about this study, and I'm sure this is not your first rodeo. But tell us why. I want to kind of give you the chance to kind of to share your enthusiasm a little bit more, because I get the sense that this is something that you're excited about being involved with this particular phase of research that could lead to some positive outcomes.
Thank you very much. Yes, I am excited about this study. And as, again, one of the reverends mentioned, one of the most important things, if you know anyone who's struggling with a relative with this, is respite care. So just offering to help. We had a woman who just wanted to go swimming, and she just needed someone to come for an hour and sit with her dad so she could go swimming. And that was so beneficial for her. So Joan's work with caregiving and relationships, it's really exciting. I think it's a new horizon for research to support our caregivers, because face it, more and more of us are going to be caregivers as the whole population ages. So,
and people can reach you how again?
Kathleen.williams@yale.edu or 203-641-5373. Thank you.
Excellent. No, thank you, and thank everyone. This has been really helpful, and just appreciate your sharing your heart, mind, and soul with something that affects all of us directly or indirectly, to try to create some peace on earth in spite of what's going on in the Ukraine. Harry, take it away. Thanks, everybody.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road, lights, camera, action.